And we are live. This is Matt from Generation F Media, joined by a very special guest, my good friend Adam. Adam, thank you for joining me. I'm very happy to have you here for the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Best week of the year, and super excited to talk through the board with you.
Yeah, this is probably the best week of the year. I don't know, the Open Championship, like I love waking up and like at like what 3 a.m., 4 a.m., just like watching golf until like 2 p.m. That is one of my favorite weeks, but like it's Augusta, like it's probably the best week of the year. So happy
Yeah,
for
no,
you
I
too.
agree. I mean, each major, I guess the PGA Championship is like easy last place amongst the majors for me, but U.S. Open and the Open are right up there with Augusta. But I think just with like how everybody in the world is into golf
Right,
this week, that kind of makes it number one. But yeah, it's
right.
like a golf sicko. I think like U.S. Open and Open it might,
I
it's
agree.
close.
The PGA championships have like sneaky been really good the last few years. Like, I don't know what it's been about the PGA. Maybe that's like the setups and like who's at the top of the leaderboard, but they've been so interesting the last like 3 seasons. But it is Augusta week, so that's what we're here to talk about. Adam and I talk literally every single day just about the dumbest shit ever. Golf, not golf, like our stupid takes, but like truly, if you don't follow Adam, I don't know how you don't. If you know me, you probably know Adam. He is one of the best golf betters, data minds, like just weird, nerdy golf minds I've ever met. So, Adam, like this, I'm super happy we're here, and you guys are gonna get a lot out of this pod. Just my takes, his takes. So, you ready to jump right into the board?
Yeah, let's get into it. And like you said, we've been talking about the board the last couple of days, so I know we've got some disagreements, which I think is going to be exciting to kind of talk through and get different perspectives and share that with everyone. And so, yeah, this is going to be fun. Let's do it.
All right, right before we hop into the board, I gotta give a quick shout out to stathero.com. 100% deposit bonus for every single sport, literally just like any of these fantasy prop sites. It's one of the next ones up. Stathero.com. Check it out. Tell them Gen F sent you, and you will get a deposit bonus. All right, there's a clear top three in this Masters board: Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler. I know I like one guy. I know you like one guy. I know some other people like the other guy. So, who is your clear cut number one guy in this top three?
So, to call even clear cut might be a little much. I mean, earlier today, I think I would have told you a different name than the one I'm about to say. So, it's not necessarily clear cut, but once I really kind of dug into it this afternoon, Scotty went to number one for me. Just when you look at the three players up top for me, you've got Scotty, who when you really look for a reason why he can't win or you would knock him down a notch, I just don't see any reason beyond he's defending champion and it's rare for defending champions to win. And like
Right.
that to me is kind of a narrative. I mean, there's stats behind it, but who knows? Scotty may not think about that at all, or maybe it's driving him crazy. Like we really don't know. Versus Rom, just from his recent form, like obviously a month ago, people would have said he's clearly the best player. Last few weeks hasn't been the best from him, so you could, point to say, okay, he's a little bit out of form. Again, you're just nitpicking between these guys, but at least there is something with Rom you could kind of clearly point to. And then with Rory, and I know that's who we'll be talking about here. For me, statistically, it's all there. There's no reason why Rory
Yeah.
can't win the Masters on paper. It's just why is this year different than any of the other years, and why it's 7-1? Am I willing to pay up to that price when it's been so long since he's won? So that to me is the question, and that's why I'm excited to hear because I respect your opinion so much. Why
Yeah.
this year is different for
Super
Rory
different.
than the last, I guess, 8-9 years, not just at Augusta, but at any major for that matter.
Yeah, so I mean, and back to the Scotty thing, like you can say the defending champion, like I agree with like that take. I never really bet guys to go back to back just to have like I think there's variance in the sport. It's a crazy sport, but Scotty has done so amazing in all what this is his fourth now in all three of his other defenses this past year. I obviously won in Phoenix, nearly won last week at the match play. Had like a hot
Yeah,
putter took him out, and he missed that little putt on
yeah,
the last
he
hole,
had it. Yeah,
and then the Genesis, he not Genesis. What was the other one? I'm
API, he
blanking.
was right there
API. He
and
was right there.
one or two, one lost by a shot or two. Yep.
So what's different about the Masters? He's in great form. He's Tee to green is through the roof, like as good as anyone in the world, the best in the world. The last 12 rounds, the last 30 rounds, the last 50 rounds, however you want to look at it, Scotty Scheffler is the clear-cut number one tee to green player in the world. So I think that is a very valid take for you to rank Scotty as your number one.
And that's kind of how I got there. Is when I was just
Right.
looking, I pulled up the stats for all those three guys. And you just look at him, it's like he is just a notch above the other guys at the moment statistically. Now, I still don't know if I'm going to get there to betting him outright to win. Just it's tough for me to pull the trigger ever at this range of the board. But no, I want to hear the Rory take. I'm excited. I've been waiting all day to dive in on Rory, so we got to get into it.
Before we get into Rory, the other guy, Jon Rahm, literally has no chance to win. Zero chance to win. For some outside sources that have nothing to do with Jon Rahm, he is boosted on a site. Someone in the golf community is on him. It's just like everything going against him. I mean, what's the third reason? Oh, he's the sneaky pick. He's like the longest odds out of the three guys. With that being said, the books are wanting you to bet on Jon Rahm. No chance. Jon Rahm will not win the Masters. I don't want to die on that hill, but he will not win the Masters. So to the Rory thing.
I respect the take, and I guess I
Hey,
did
that's your
text it.
take. That's your take.
That's true. I mean, to be blunt, I did text it earlier, so I'll say it out to the world. That too. I'll back you up.
All right, Rory McIlroy. What's different about this year compared to other years? So I don't know. Maybe that 2019 3-month stretch was his best of his career, strokes gain wise. But I think this stretch that he's on right now without a win is arguably one of the best. It's crazy to say that this might be the best run of Rory's career, but looking at the numbers, it's insane how well he's hitting the ball from tee to green, like just playing amazing golf, like everywhere. It's just I don't know how he hasn't won yet in this run because Scotty's won, Jon Rahm has won, and he's just the last man out who hasn't won. So with that being said, like I think a win is near. Also, I think what's different about this year is the weather. You're gonna need carry distance, and I really think who carries it further than Rory? Not many guys. So with that being said, and Rory doesn't win in conditions 10 under or below. It's gonna be wet. You're gonna have to hit it close, and there's gonna be birdies made this week. It just as long as it does it, it's not like raining torrentially and like they're playing through it, which we don't really think they will be. And like you said earlier today, like they're not draining these greens out. Like they're going to do their best, but they're just not going to be able to. It's going to rain too much. So Rory does so well in these rainy, wet conditions. Congressional won by what? 8? Rain and similar vibe. So I think Rory is in some of the best form of his career. So all those combinations, he got to Augusta last week, playing practice rounds. He seems ready with the live guys being there. Rory is the face of the PGA Tour, or at least kind of that's what the PGA Tour wants to make him, whether he wants it or not, which I kind of think he does. I don't know. But like you said, that is a lot of pressure. And he's been on that take before. He said he knows there's pressure, and he's tried to get the career Grand Slam before. So I don't know. There is pressure, which makes me nervous. I wish he was going a little bit under the radar. I don't think he's going to be too popular just because of the number. So, but I do think it's Rory's year. I really do.
And I think the weather was one thing we didn't touch on the top, and it is a huge piece of the story this week. I mean,
that's huge for me. The weather
starting at basically Thursday afternoon through Monday morning, it looks like rain is forecasted the entire time. And to your point, you look at some of Rory's best results in big tournaments that when it gets wet and long and soft, that's Rory's music. So I do think, and I tweeted this yesterday, that it's very possible, and who knows what happens in the future, but this is his best chance to win the Masters. And the only reason why it might not be is because he's got to go up against Scotty and Rahm, who are in great form right now. It'd be better for him if he came in and the other guys at the top were struggling a little bit, so that there may be a future year where he's in great form and those guys are struggling, gives him a better chance. But I agree the weather is a big edge for him. And just the hard part for me is it's like at 7-1, or, if you can get it boosted, maybe 8, 9, 10-1 if on different books, he's really just priced to perfection. It's like, you're getting no deal on Rory. It's like, it takes the full commitment and you've got the full commitment. So you're in, but I just couldn't, get there knowing that it's like you have to truly believe to your core with every bit of you that it's Rory's here.
And I've been like, the last week and a half, my leans were like Rory can't lay, and I wasn't really sure. I didn't run any numbers because I don't run numbers till week of. That's why I don't really bet futures because I like doing everything week of. And Rory rated out so well for me, and I was like, okay, this is kind of aligning paths. I was thinking it. The weather thing just made it even bigger. I don't know. It just all of that combined into once made me pay the price to get Rory at 10-1. Thank you, DraftKings Boost. Got him at 10-1. But there was something else I was gonna say on this Rory take. It's kind of just slipped my mind. Uh, I don't
Here's a
remember what it
question for
was.
you while you kick around that take. And
I remembered it.
if starting on the back nine on Sunday, Rory, Scotty, and Rahm are tied at 15 under, and there's no one else even close. It's those three
That'd be
going
pretty
down the
sick.
back nine, which obviously will never happen, but let's just use it for this hypothetical.
Yeah.
Who do you think Rory in that situation is the favorite to win amongst those three in that situation?
I'd honestly probably want Rahm in that situation. Would you want Scotty?
I definitely know Rory would be my last pick of those three,
Okay.
just solely because the pressure in that moment. And I guess Scotty maybe
Yeah. No, I
had the
agree.
second most
I agree.
pressure, and Ron probably has the least pressure because, he doesn't have the either defending or trying to do the career Grand Slam. So I might agree with you on Rom. But I think for me, when I'm considering these three guys, I kind of have to think about it in that mindset because I just expect at least two of them, and probably all three to play well. So it's really
Right.
like when it comes down the stretch, which of those guys do I like the best? And I still, like I said, Scotty, I still am not convinced on where I'm going to go if I do go to the top of the board
Right. It
between
is. Yeah.
those
It
guys.
is Monday, so all of our takes are definitely valid to change. Actually, no. Everything we say here goes, so
Yeah,
we
we're
cannot
sticking to
change.
our guns. Yeah.
But what I was gonna say to go against what you said about Scotty, you're saying Rory has to go up against Scotty and Rom. Okay, that's just two guys. I feel like in past years he's going up against Justin Thomas in better form, Xander in better form, like John Rahm, Scotty last year. Like I feel like there's more guys in the past few years than this year. All those Brooks Koepka, like all those live guys are now gone. And like you're high on Brooks Koepka. I'm throwing away like a majority of the live guys because even the Cam Smith in the last 2 years, I feel like there's less guys for Rory to beat now in peak form than like because you're saying he has to beat those guys in peak form, which is very true. But I feel like there's just less guys who he has to compete against.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like top to bottom in the field, it's probably not as deep. And I think we see that there's a reason that these three guys are under 10-1, and that really hasn't been the setup on the odds board, I don't think, in many recent previous Masters. So yeah, depth wise, there's less, I think, a threat of, somebody kind of coming from deeper down the board against him. And it's really the toughest question of the week is, of those three, who do you believe in the most? And I think a lot of people are going to end up in, different spots, and you really can't go wrong. They're so good. There's great arguments for all three players, basically.
110%. And you haven't pulled the trigger on any of them yet. You may or may not go to Scotty. You thinking?
Yeah, if I do go to the top of the board, it would be Scotty. And we'll talk about some other guys in a second here. But yeah, so for me, it's really either Scotty at the top of the board or 3 to 4 guys kind of in this next tier that we're going to talk about. I know the right thing to do probably is Scotty, but it's so hard for me ever to pull the trigger on a single
you always
bullet or
crush
top of the board.
that mid range, which you've done for so long. All right, we'll go to that not mid range, but like the upper tier mid range. So like Jordan Spieth down to like Xander. So I'll let you lead this segment off. Who are you eyeing in this range? Because I'm kind of high on Rory. So who are you liking here?
Yeah, so the guys that are top of mind for me, and this is the case at almost every major, and it never seems to go right, is Patrick Cantlay. I think just statistically, you look at some of the things. It's kind of a similar story to Rory in a sense of what is different this time about Patrick Cantlay that versus all the other majors, because he always kind of looks good on paper and it always makes sense and it never seems to work out. So like, why do I think this could be something different for Cantlay versus before? And what excites me is the tee to green play and just overall performance that he showed in the Florida swing, which is a part of the season he usually doesn't play at all. And when he does play, like obviously plays the players, but he hasn't played the API a lot or any of those other events. He played really well, and he performed the best he has in his career in those events where he theoretically is a little uncomfortable. So it's nice to see him outperforming in an aspect or an area where he wasn't, historically hasn't been good, which can easily describe the majors for him as well. And also just the way he's driving the ball now is easily the best he's driven it in his career by far. I mean, the increases he's making off the tee this year are insane, and he's right up there now with Rahm and Scotty and them at and Rory just driving it at the top level of the game, which takes a little bit of the pressure off of his approach play, which has always been kind of the most volatile part of his game. He looks good around the greens, and then the putter wasn't very strong on the Bermuda and Florida, but bent is his best service, and he's putted reasonably well at Augusta before. We don't have the stats. The last couple of years haven't been great, but he's had good performances at Augusta, and you have to assume you're putting all right to have solid finishes there. So he, for me, kind of jumps out as the number one guy that I'm considering in this range, followed by a guy that's kind of growing on me as the week goes on, and a guy that I hardly ever bet. I can't even think the last time I bet him, is JT. I think he's flying under the radar. And historically, when JT flies under the radar at big events, he seems to step up and play well. When you look at his stats, statistically, tee to green, he's right up there, kind of fifth or sixth range amongst everybody tee to green. Over the
getting better too. Yeah, because he had that little dip.
Yeah. And so for him, it's just been with the putter. And I think on a week like this, where it's going to play softer, be wetter, if he gets his iron play going, he's the type of guy who can just start throwing darts and go low. We know JT's the type of player who can, get to 15, 20, 25 under par. He's done that plenty of times in his career. So he's a guy. And then I was just listening to a podcast too, and I completely kind of left this out of my thinking about him, is the Bones aspect of things. We know the value that Bones brings. At Augusta, it's a kind of a unique situation there. And so he's a guy who's growing on me that kind of is surprising to me, because he wasn't a guy at all that I had top of mind coming into the week.
Yeah, Justin Thomas. I was eyeing him up. I was driving to work this morning. I was like, this Justin Thomas is going to just win when no one's on him. Like at Augusta too. Because I remember the last 2-3 years I bet Justin Thomas at Augusta, and it's just been like dead on day two, except for like he had that one run. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Then he went in the water
November one, yeah.
Yeah, when he won the water on 13 after like a delay.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I was like, fucking Justin Thomas. But I like where your head's at with JT. But back to Cantlay. So this is where we are very aligned, because we're opposite on Rory. I'm on Cantlay too. 22-1. I think he is a great play. I mean, I always think Cantlay is a great play. It never looks bad. But I tweeted it like 2 weeks ago. I said Patrick Cantlay will win a major this year. This is the best tee to green form he's been in since 2021, when he, I guess, won Memorial, but he was still playing great golf at that moment, following, I think it was a high finish at a PGA Championship, then Memorial, something like that. But this is some of the best form he's been in since then, tee to green wise. And his worst club in his bag right now is his putter. And that's when you think about Patrick Cantlay, you think elite putter who can just pour it in at will. And like you said, he's back on bent. I wouldn't want to face Patrick Cantlay when he's due to roll in a ton of putts, because I saw it in person. It's a scary sight. Caves Valley, one of the worst experiences of my life with a Bryson ticket, but that was truly insane. Back to bent grass. I think Patrick Cantlay is another great play. He's an equipment free agent. He's using all the clubs he wanted to use after the Amex when he first tested him out. A little bit shaky, and now he's absolutely dialed. I've never seen Patrick Cantlay with these tee to green numbers. It's truly
and the way,
scary.
And then like when you dig in deeper into the stats beyond just the tee to green numbers too, the way he's scoring on the par fives and from 200 plus, like the areas where he's going to be tested a lot this week, he's again playing the best of his career and basically better than anyone besides Rahm in most of those categories. It's truly just a question of like, can Cantlay do it? He's messed it up so many. Like he hasn't even really. You can't really point until like basically 2019 when he was up there when Tiger won, and he just kind of popped up down the stretch. Like he hasn't even been in the mix. Now the thing about him is, I think if he gets into the mix, he'll be just fine. Like we know Cantlay can close the door when he gets in the mix. His issue has been he can't even get in to the mix. He just gets off to too bad of a start or does something stupid and can't get into the mix. So with him, I don't worry about his ability to close the door once he gets into the mix. I don't think he needs like 3 or 4 close calls in majors to win. I think he could win the very first time he gets in the mix. He just hasn't been able to get into it at all.
Yeah, and it's not even just with the majors. He hasn't really done it since the summer, I guess. Like this hasn't been the best seat. What was his best result? Genesis was backdoor. Wasn't API backdoor too? Yeah. Shriners, I guess, which would
they lost a Tom
field, and he shit the bed on 18, which is weird. So yeah, I think Patrick Cantlay, get in the mix. You'll have a great chance. Anyone else in this middle range that you're like eyeing up, or is these basically it?
I want to quickly touch on two guys and kind of get your thoughts on them, because I think all the guys in this 20-ish range, you have things that you can like about them and dislike. There's a reason that they're in the 20. All these guys are like pretty much fairly priced at their prices. You can't really look at any of these guys and say you're getting a steal of a deal. You're kind of just getting a fair price on them, I think.
Deal.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And so, like, Colin, for me, you look at his steady progression at Augusta. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but it's something like 42nd, 18th, 5th, or something like that for Colin. So just steadily, you can see him figuring out Augusta. And when you think about him as a player, one of the best iron players in the game at the moment and in his career, that is the calling card of people who win at Augusta, is great iron players. So you think about him in his career as the type of player who should play well here. The issue, especially in these wet conditions, is his distance off the tee. We know he's not the longest of hitters, but at the same time, you give me Colin hitting from 210 versus Cantlay, just because we were talking about him hitting from 170 or 180. I expect Colin to stick it in there just as close as a lot of those guys from those. Like, his long irons are just so good that he can back up a little bit. And in these softer conditions, like we saw at Harding Park, for example, it was kind of wet and cold in California that time of year in San Francisco. I like him in these softer conditions, just throwing darts. If he gets hot with his irons, gains 8-9 strokes on approach, which he knows he's capable of, that's good enough for him to win this type of event. So I'm interested in him. And then also Xander. Just statistically, Xander looks good with his short game and with his approach play, but his off the tee has just been the worst of his career these last few weeks. And I don't know if it's a lingering thing with his back or anything like that. Those are some of the guys who just match the statistical makeup of players who can win at the Masters. And I don't know if I'll get there on any of them, but curious your thoughts on those guys.
Yeah, I mean, the Colin thing, he will lack distance. It's just what it is. But we saw him at Torrey Pines right in the mix. He needs distance there, right in the mix. And his caddy stated in his career, Colin Morikawa has the same dispersion as his 6-iron that most guys do on his 9-iron. And that's obvious. He's one of the best iron players in the world, if not the best when he's in his peak form. He's hitting the ball great. I don't know. But the thing that worries me about Colin, if it is going to be wet, which it's going to be, the score is going to be lower. Colin Morikawa is a great lag putter, one of the best lag putters in the world. I don't know how many birdie putts he's got. If this gets to 17 under, he's definitely capable of getting there. But I would love it if it was a little less wet, it was 12 under, because just that many more birdie putts is a real thing. He will be fine lag putting, getting down in 2 for most spots, but those few birdie putts in the wet conditions are legit things, because he'll give himself those 15-foot chances as much as any guys. It's a matter of rolling them in. So that's interesting to see. And then Xander, I thought he looked okay at the match play off the tee. Those stats came in bad, but you can only take so much from the match play stats. But he looked visually okay. Augusta National is not the place that requires you to be the most precise off the tee. I don't think his off the tee stats are lack of distance. I feel like it's more of a dispersion thing. He's bombing it out there. He should be good. And Xander Schauffele is blacklisted for me until further notice, which means I hammer him in DraftKings. That's just my life hedge. So he's been so great at Augusta, close calls. So I think Xander is kind of going under the radar too, and that's when he seems to pop up. But I can never, ever, ever get him right. It's never get Xander right. He's one guy has my number. I will never get Xander right. So I'm just gonna play him in DK, play him heavy, and just not bet him because he's on my blacklist until he pops up again.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And he was almost on my blacklist, but I bet him, and it was the same thing. I almost never get him right, but I thought I had him right at API because I think he was in the final group in the 3rd round. He played great the first round, so I was like, oh, I finally got Xander right, and he completely.
You were one of the only people on him that week. I feel like he was not popular.
He completely dove down the board the rest of the week. So yeah, I don't know what to make of him, but I do think that everybody's so focused on the top 3 and deciding which of those guys is going to win. And you just look historically, and I'm doing the same. This isn't against anyone who's doing that. There really haven't been a ton of Masters winners under 10-1. I think DJ was right around there when he won in 2020, but he was also so clearly playing better than everybody at that point.
He was the guy, yes.
Yeah. He was crushing it at that point. He had just shot 59 or close to 6 or something like that. I think he shot 60, but a tournament a couple weeks before. So I think this range of player starting with Spieth and going up to probably DJ and Brooks. And we should talk about the live guys because I know we have a
We'll do
bit
that
of
next.
different
We'll do that
opinion on that.
next.
They're not being considered in the same way that they are almost any other tournament of the year. Most time, nobody talks about the top of the board, and everybody talks about the guys in the 20s. And it's just like assume that you're not going to bet the guys at the top of the board. That's kind of the just common way we go about tournament. This week has been entirely different from almost every person who like I listen to and
Very
read
weird.
in the space. And it's interesting. It could be right. That could be very much the right thing to do. And like I said, I'm considering doing it myself. But wouldn't it be so typical of how things go that when everybody goes and looks at the top of the board, that boom, one of these guys in the 20 range who we've started to think can't win steps up and delivers. I think that's being dismissed as a possibility when obviously it could happen.
That's a real thing. I didn't even think about that and probably because I am, as you know from talking to me every week, I always do go to the top of the board. I'm more than I go to the top of the board a lot. So I didn't even think about that. But the public sentiment is like, okay, we're around Scott. You got to pick your guy. So that means, yeah, JT's going to fucking win when he drifts a little bit. That's like perfect JT win. I don't know. It could be a real sentiment because I always like to zag too when that happens. I like Rory too much. I'm not going to get off him. I already put the bet in too. So definitely interesting to think about. Do you want to jump into the live guys?
Yeah, I think so because it's been interesting. I mean, it's hands down to me one of the most, I don't know if complicated is the right word, but like different scenarios that we've never had the situation before in an event where like 18 of the players have been playing an entirely different tour of golf where we don't have stats from, we don't really know what's going on. Like you can watch it on TV, you can look at how they finish, but you really don't know how guys are playing. Is Brooks playing great because he's driving it great? I have no idea. Like I don't know why Brooks is playing good. I just know that to win twice, I don't care what tournaments you're playing in 6 starts or whatever it is, and is impressive. And like I bet a lot of the DP World Tour, for example. I watch the DP World Tour all the time. I think if Brooks was winning over on the DP World Tour, people would be like, oh, they would respect that more than him winning on Live. And I think these tournaments are harder to win than a lot of the DP World Tour. If Brooks went over to the DP World Tour, I think he'd be like 5-1, like every single time. So I just think with Brooks specifically, like I might think differently about Live as a whole. Like there's some guys who I think have 0% chance whatsoever. But I'm just intrigued by Brooks because of who he is and how quickly we seem to have decided that Brooks can't win majors anymore, even though no one has won more majors than Brooks in the somewhat recent past. And to see him starting to play well and to see him back with Claude Harmon, who was his coach when he won all those majors, and he went away from him kind of during COVID and during the stretch, and he really struggled. He goes back to him, wins in Jeddah or wherever the hell they were playing, instantly says, like, I'm back with Claude. Like, we've got things. He's like, we've got things figured out. I'm excited. Like, I'm healthy for the first time in a long time. You think back to, I think it was 2 Masters ago, he couldn't even bend down to read his putts. Like, how is he supposed to win a major when he can't even bend down to read his putts? Like, we just respected Brooks so much as a major winner. People just assumed he could show up with a broken leg, basically, and win. So I kind of throw away what's happened to him the last couple of years. I'm excited what I'm seeing from him. And that's why it's so interesting, because it's like, is what's happening on Live, does it matter or does it not? My opinion is that it does, but I totally see the other side. But it's just like, it's a true coin flip because we've never been in the situation before.
Adam, truthfully, you are like selling me on, like, I'm not going to bet him, but you're selling me on the optimism of Brooks. I was totally like, no chance any Live guys, but I would probably say Brooks would be my top Live guy if I had to pick one, just based off like that narrative and his demeanor and his, like, when he's playing any type of good golf. Like you said the other day, he don't care about the regular tournaments. He don't care about these Live tournaments, but the fact that he's even contending in them, that means he's playing good golf. So if good golf is in the realm for Brooks Koepka, we know what that could become. Is that a major championship right now? Maybe, but like, I know what you're saying.
And my thing with Brooks too is I don't like him necessarily at Augusta. Like he could win the Masters in his career, no doubt about it. He probably did win in 2019, but he let Tiger win, so you have to knock that down for him. Right. But like when Brooks is playing well, Augusta makes sense. He drives it far and straight when he's playing well. He's great with his long irons. He's nifty around the greens and a good putter. Like there's no reason he can't win Augusta. But you just look at where he's won his majors. He's been unbelievable at the U.S. Open his entire career. Even when he hasn't won, he's been right up there. Like And even last year, after 2 rounds, he was up there at the U.S. Open and kind of faded. And then PGA Championship. If you like Brooks, my recommendation would be to look at the futures at the U.S. Open and the PGA, which better match historically when he's playing well where he performs best, and not necessarily chase down the Brooks number this week, which has already been bet down a ton. And I've already got a future on him at 75 at the U.S. Open, and that's where I'm keeping my eyes on Brooks. Because if he plays well this week, let's say he finishes T6, he is going to be
It'll get
hammered at
25
those.
easy.
Yeah. So that's my opinion on Brooks. Like, I'm not betting him to win this week. We'll see what happens, but I'm looking at him a little bit down the road. And the other live guy that I do like, just because of his history here, and I don't think it really matters how he's been playing, is DJ. When he shows up at Augusta, he plays well almost every single year, except for the year when he was defending, and it was kind of a weird 6 months
Did he
later.
miss that cut?
Yeah, kind of weird though, because 6 months later, like, it's not, he didn't have the full year. It's kind of just like it's a little bit of an odd situation. But last year, I think he was T12, and he just did not putt well at all. But tee to green, he was really good. And I heard his interviews today, and obviously DJ always sounds super chill in his interviews. He just came across as like confident and not really worried about the situation. He was like, when I play my best, I expect to compete with these guys. And he's like, I just come to Augusta, expect to play well. So he's someone that I am eyeing around kind of 32-1. I just think if you had told me 9 months ago that DJ would be 32-1 at Augusta, I think it would be the easiest bet that I've ever placed. And sometimes, like, I try to remind myself to remember how I was thinking 6 months, 9 months ago, because we get so caught up in like the short term and the day to day. And so often guys win who you're like, oh, 6 months ago, I love this guy. You kind of forget about him. And then he wins when he's not that different of a player than he was, 6-9 months ago. So DJ's one that I'm definitely interested in.
Yeah, and DJ, when he went over to live, it was a win-win-win. He looked awesome. This past season, most recent season that we're in right now, first start was a little shaky. Probably wasn't playing much golf. Then 13th, then 7th. So he's trending in the right direction. He's playing good golf, gearing up to Augusta. And I would say these live guys, at least for this first year, really want to win at Augusta and play well. Down the road, they might care less because it's about they went for the money. But I would think those two probably have the best chance. Cam Smith, he was kind of the shiny new toy the last 2 years because remember, like even a year and a half ago, Cam Smith was 40-1 in a lot of events. Cam Smith wasn't like this 20-1, 10-1 golfer every single week. He was always a good golfer who never really got over the hump, and then he figured out how to drive it straight. But he has not been well in live these first 3 starts. He looks like bad. Now, I wouldn't say bad. He does not dial up those wedges. Putter's fine, but he's not driving it correctly. Because I've watched a lot of live. I bet live. I was at the event on Saturday. Doesn't really look too great. So Cam,
I agree. Like, I'm not considering Cam, especially at the prices he was at. If Cam was in the DJ range, then I'd probably give it a closer look. And I agree. Like, I haven't watched that much live. I turned it on at my Akoba, and I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever watched. And I couldn't do it. But I just feel like Cam is the type of guy who could just, like, this is going to sound like stupid and like kind of takey, but I don't know how else to describe it. He's the type of guy who could just show up and instantly he's playing good again. Like, he doesn't he's not a fundamental style of player. He just is a kind of just like heats up and gets going type of guy. And so if he is spraying it around off the tee and hitting crazy shots, that's why he's so good here, is because he can scramble from anywhere and hit those insane shots around trees and scramble and get it up and down and make a shit ton of putts. Like, he's the type of guy, he shoots 5-6 under in the first round. He's not going, like, he's not going to be fading away. No, he just needs to get like a taste of the battle, and he's going to be in the fight. So I think for him, it's really important to see how he starts, because if he's hot out of the gates with the putter, instantly people are going to go, oh shit, Cam Smith, who just won the last major, the Open, like, he won the Open Championship at St. Andrews and beat Rory. And Rory had the lead going into the final round. Like, we so quickly forget like who these guys are and what they're capable of. And that's why it's so interesting with like this live dynamic, because it's easy to see or say they don't have it. Like, they're not going to show up with that same vibe that they had when they left, but they easily could. And we don't know, like, it's a guess on both sides. There's no fact about what's going to happen because we've just never been in the situation before.
Yeah, no, that's a good take. I would say I still like Brooks and DJ better than Cam
I
because
agree.
I
Yeah,
just don't think he is in the right spot off the tee and just as dialed as he should be just from playing so few tournament
yeah,
competitive rounds.
I agree.
Um, I'm interested to see how Bryson DeChambeau plays because I was a firm Bryson always got so much hate. I've always loved Bryson for like not I didn't like bet him a bunch and he won me a lot of money. I just like Bryson. I like the what he's done for golf, what he's done to golf, just the way he thinks. And when Bryson was like Augusta is a par 67 for me, obviously that didn't pan out the way it was. But like when you think about it, like sneaky was, but like it just didn't work. He just didn't play good golf. But I think the course sets up for him so well. A bomber
Yeah,
who hits it right to left, and I don't know, he's playing horrible right now, like so bad. But I'm gonna play him in DraftKings. I'm just gonna.
my thing with him. So that Masters, the November Masters, after he had just won the U.S. Open,
When he was peaking, like
everyone in the world was like, he said this is a par 67, and no one even really some people laughed, but at the time the thinking was this is a par 67 per price. Like people believed that he had like conquered the game, and it was a whole new world. Like people genuinely thought that was the situation with Bryson. And so then he showed up that year, and like on the second hole snap hooked it into the trees out of bounds, and then like it was all downhill from there for him. And he really, like, it's hard for me to see if he couldn't even come close to competing that year when like it was
right.
all set up
I
perfectly
agree.
for him. How is he going to go from playing genuinely horrible golf to win the Masters, like, or even play well at like all, like you mentioned DraftKings? I think I get where you're coming from because you're going to get a nice discount probably on ownership because a lot of people are saying exactly what I'm saying. I just I don't see any path for him to play even
Yeah.
borderline well. If
My path is I see he's still one of the longest players, if not the longest player in the field. And but again, he hasn't been playing golf. But when he's
How's he
playing
been like?
golf,
This is a
no,
question
he's
for
been
you. Like,
horrible,
I'm genuinely like visually
horrible.
because I see his
No,
finishes.
bad,
Okay,
bad.
so yeah, yeah.
Missing fairways. Like he's still hitting driver a lot. Like hooks. Like oh, how did that one go left?
And that's what's
Which
so
like
like what I did with the live guys to kind of like figure out how to get them even into the model and stuff because like it's kind of difficult to figure out even how to model them was like if a guy so like I'm pulling up Bryson if a guy was playing badly on the PGA Tour before he went to live and now he's still playing bad, I assume he's struggling in the same areas that he was struggling when we do have data for. And in the same way, like if a guy's playing well on live and he was playing borderline well when he left the PGA Tour, I assume their statistical like makeup is somewhat close to what it was. You know, like how else would they be scoring the way that they are unless they were performing well in the areas that they like normally play well in? And for Bryson, like he was playing so bad on the PGA Tour before he left. Like his stats are terrible. Losing off the
yeah, like
tee, losing on
horrible.
approach, losing around the green, like batted everything. And now he goes and amazingly he finished T8 at the Open, which makes no sense at St. Andrews. But he like to then continue to play so bad on live. I just assume like his stat lines look the exact same. And I'm excited this week to see the live guys stats because I'm so driven by like stats in my decision making with picks, like almost to a fault. I'm always going to trust the stats over anything. It's just like my process. So to not have that for these guys and not know like why is Brooks playing well? We don't know. If I
Right.
saw like I think we would have a different perspective on these guys if you could see for Brooks, oh, he gained 8 on approach or whatever last tournament. If people knew what the numbers were and it matched up with like the stats you're looking for at Augusta, I think we would have a different perspective on these guys because we just don't know.
I have the stat sheet for live like because I got credentials for the event and I
Okay.
got like I got a Dropbox of the stats.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not stroke gain, but it's like just like listed stats like greens regulation stuff like that. I could send it to you after if I could find it, which I probably can. It's in a Dropbox somewhere in my email. But to wrap up the Bryson thing, he's playing horrible golf. He's going to be super low owned. That's why I'm going to play him. But when he's playing golf, he's like people think Bryson DeChambeau long, super long. That's all he does. when he's playing his best, arguably one of the best lag putters in the world. Truly, when he's like playing
Yeah.
best golf. I don't know how he's putting the ball. Probably not great, but it just the nuance of the and he hasn't figured it out. He's played horrible. Low ownership. But I still in my head. Big high draws off the tee. He can make a 3 on 13 4 straight days. I could just I don't think I could see it, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna play him in DraftKings. I'm gonna eat the 7% ownership of Bryson DeChambeau and run it out because I know I've always said even when he was
Yeah.
like coming up, Bryson DeChambeau will win a green jacket, and that's
He
obviously
played
off the
well
table
as
now
an
that he's on
amateur.
live.
He was in the mix for a little bit as an amateur, which speaks to like his ability, and also might speak of why his changes ended up being a huge mistake because he was a really good player before he did that.
Yeah.
But I have a few guys I'm curious about, and I don't know how much time we have, but I'm genuinely, not even for the pod, I just want to hear your opinions on for my own like betting and thinking about the week because I respect your opinion on people. And I think like why I like to hear your opinion versus, there's a lot of people out there who I listen to and read. There's a lot of times where like the negative side I see about somebody, you see it from the other side. Like I think Chris Kirk at Honda is a perfect example. Like I see Chris Kirk, obviously he makes sense at Honda. You actually pull the trigger and like stuck with that guy knowing like the risks that go into him. And so I'm going to fire off some guys and I want to hear your takes. And the first is truly your guy, Will Zalatoris. What is the opinion on Will Zalatoris?
Yeah, and I bet Will Zalatoris 2 weeks after that Genesis top 4. What was that event that I forget? It doesn't matter where I bet him. I bet him after that he played well at the Genesis, but I still don't think he is there yet. He obviously the back thing, he got a new golf swing. Whether he hits the ball well, he got a new golf swing. And what comes Sunday afternoon, if he's playing well, he's 2 strokes back, he's in the lead, whatever. How will that new swing? He's never had new swing thoughts under pressure. How will that hold up? We know he has it. It took him a while to kind of like. I mean, that's not true. Didn't take him a while to get in the mix. He was in the mix right away. But it took him a while to get over that hump. Whether that was because of missed putts, because of other things. We saw him at the U.S. Open. He missed those fairways when he needed to hit those fairways. Kind of cost him it. I don't know. I don't think that swing will hold up in those dire moments on Sunday if he even gets to that spot. But he rated out so well for me, better than I thought he would. And I love Will Zalatoris more than anyone, but I don't think it's his year to win a Masters. And he hasn't been playing as much, I guess.
And I think
hold up? I don't know.
My issue with him, when you just look at his approach numbers, since he's come back from the injury, they are quite simply not as good, not even really close to as good. Genesis was really the only place where he even was close to like his former self on approach. And when you look at like how he was on, Genesis is, you look at his like per round at the match play 0.1, 0.55, 0.41, and then 1.18. And then it's negative 0.62 negative. And like leading into the Masters when he like broke out and no one expected him when he finished second at the 2021 Masters coming in 1.34, 1.42, 1.09, 1 point. Like he is not at the same level as an approach player. And his game is built around being an unbelievable approach player. And that's why he excels here. And that's why he makes a lot of putts here because he's giving himself the best putts up the hills. Those types of things matter.
He needs downhill, though. Everyone knows it.
True. He leaves himself the perfect downhill putt, and he drains it. But, I just think, like, people just see 45, and they're like, oh, 45 on Will Zalatoris. He plays great in majors. And it's like, there's a reason why he's 45. You're not really getting a deal on Will Zalatoris. You're getting him in the version of what he is today, and it's not the 25, 30-1 player that he has been coming into these events historically.
And when he was playing good, he was priced in those Masters futures and between the 20 and 30, like probably where he should have been if he was in that form. So, yeah, I agree. Who are you thinking you want to hear my opinion?
We haven't actually talked about him this week, but I think we talked to him before the week started. And it's a guy who I have zero belief will ever win a meaningful tournament. It's Victor Hovland. Like, I have almost no belief in Hovland at all. I just don't. You said you were high on Hovland. And I was curious to hear do you think he can win the Masters?
No, did I say no? I think he is I wrote him up for DraftKings. I think He is a glaring weakness, which you need at Augusta. But when you think about the conditions, you're gonna have to hit it long. He can do that. It's just like he can take away that variable of bad golf with elite golf in another category, which is elite approach and bad around the green play. You're gonna miss greens for sure, but you can't be missing a green every other hole. I don't know. Victor Hovland, when he's at his best, he's striping it a little pull cut. I guess not the right shot shape for Augusta, but the past few winners kind of have done that. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to win. I think he can have a decent finish here. He played okay last year, but he chipped himself out of it like he always does. Just he's got to avoid those. It's easy to say he's got to avoid missing greens, but he's got to avoid missing greens.
And I think too, like coming in even last year, he was playing better than he is this year.
I
Like,
bet him last year.
He won in Europe to start last year, and then he almost won API, but blew it. And he really hasn't. I mean, unless I'm forgetting something, there hasn't been a tournament all year where we thought he was going to win at any point of like the back nine, right?
There was one that he was definitely like. I feel like he was doing. Could be wrong. No, you're right. There was no tournament that he was like there. He had that good run. Yeah.
Oh. One guy who, like, again, nobody's talking about because his history at all majors and especially the Masters has been terrible compared to the quality of player that he is, and it's similar conversation to Cantlay, is Max Homa. And he's a guy who I love Max Homa. For as much as you love Zal is how much I love Max.
Oh, yeah, like
I bet him a lot. And when you just look at him statistically, if you didn't know his history at Augusta, if you just pulled up the stats and said, like, oh, I'm looking for guys who really look like the type of player who's going to show up in the form that they're in and translate that to Augusta, because I think that's the nice thing about Augusta is, like, if you're hitting, it's so predictive of a tournament because it just allows you, if you're in form in certain areas, to just, there's no gimmicks to stop you from being able to excel in those areas. Max has had some of the most upside on approach of anyone in the world all season long. Like, he has the ability when the irons get going to just get cooking with his irons. And he's a guy who won at Torrey saying, I love hitting 4 irons. I love hitting 5 irons. Like, you don't hear a lot of guys who are excited to be hitting long irons, but he really does. And it shows at the places that he's won. Quail Hollow, that's a place that Rory, of course, destroys. Torrey is, I think, a great comp this week in the distance angle and off the tee game. And when you add in the distance this year, like, it's already a good comp. We obviously Tiger and things like that, and Bubba and have played well at Torrey. Like, it makes sense. He gained on approach at Torrey almost 12 strokes, and at Arnold Palmer he gained over 8.5. And like, he drives it great. We know how well he plays in when it kind of gets wet and soft and weird. Like, he's the type of guy. If they have to play in the pouring down rain, because they might have to just step up and like play in the rain because it's raining so much and they need to get the tournament in. We know Max can handle those conditions, and the way he's been putting too, he is at his best a top 3, top 4, top 5 player in the world, and he's shown it all season long. And he's been there. At the Players, he was up there, and he played really well. Scotty ran away, but Max played very well after a very slow start. I bet him at the Players, and he started terribly, struggled, and he built into the tournament, stuck in there, and slowly continued to climb. He's talked about mentally. He's an entirely different player. He's had a mental coach. He's changing all of that, and I'm like talking myself into him almost as we talk. And then you get to his performance, and it's just like, why hasn't it translated in the majors? And I'm almost willing, because of how different of a player I think he is today, at 30-some to 1 or whatever he is, he's probably the best deal on the board if you're willing to look past his major history.
And I was just going to say, like, how people might not want to bet him at the number, but it's literally not even a bad number. Those 100s that were going around even a few months ago, if you got them, good, like, great bet. Yeah. Truly great bet. Those 100s. But I thought you said, I looked at his number when you were just talking about him. Like, 32 is like not a bad number for, like, and it's crazy to say, like, this field, like this, like, I'm just taking out all of those like live guys. Like, I really am. He's a top 5 player when he's at his best. Is he at his best? Maybe not, but like, that's a good number.
I think Max is at its best. Like, T9 at match. I guess he made the knockouts of match play in his first appearance, which is solid. T6 at the play, like T6 at
Yeah, no,
players,
he's playing
T14
good
at
golf.
second at the Genesis. Who in the
No,
20s is
like no,
playing?
you're right. No, you're
Who in
literally
the
right.
20s is playing better than Max? No
No,
one.
you're
Like I'm
yeah,
betting
you're
Max.
right.
I'm betting Max. I just talked
It's already
myself
done.
into it. Like if I don't bet Scotty and I need like because I might not have room if I bet Scotty, why would I bet Cantlay, who also sucks in the majors? Like we have the same questions about Cantlay that we have about Max, and Max has won this season and almost probably could have won like he should have won Genesis. He had it and just wasn't able to close it out if we're wrong. He was T3 at Century. Every time the good players have showed up, Max has played great.
Yeah. He's a dad now. Maybe that changes his major course. I think
and like we were saying about Cantlay, if Max gets a taste of it, he's not going to be going away. Like he's talked about it before. He struggled at the beginning of the tournament because he puts too much pressure on himself out of the gates and he doesn't like ease into the tournament. If Max is T6 going into the weekend,
let's ride.
Yeah. So it's like I think
hope he's not group with Tiger, and then you're good.
Yeah, when I really talk it out loud, it's like, why would I bet any of the guys in the 20s who I have all these questions about when Max is playing better? He was T13 at the PGA last year, so like he has a okay major result, and he's made the cut at Augusta, so like he's got experience around here. It'll be his fourth Masters.
No,
why not?
Not that I'm gonna bet it because I think I made my decisions, but you've also swayed me to even give Max a deeper look. I think he is a great look at 33-1. I thought that number was bad when I first looked at it, but the guys he's around, like that is a great look. So, any other guys in this range you want to ask me about? And then real quick, I want to just touch on a few, not long shots who could win, long shots who you think could show their face in the leaderboard on the weekend.
Just kind of in the same mold of like a guy, because this is what's so fascinating about majors. I love them so much. It's like we get so caught up in the narrative and like, oh, it's a major, it's this entirely different thing. And a lot of times it's true. Like it shows up. Guys just don't seem to play well or they have an experience of playing well. The more the week's gone on, and when we talk about the distance and the wetness and things like that, another guy who's just playing great golf, Cam Young. What is your opinion? The price if you had got a future, congratulations, like good job. I'm talking today on the price. What is your opinion on it? Because it's a tough price, but to me, he's no different than like Zalatoris. And if Zalatoris was good, Zalatoris was usually priced around 28-1 or 26-1 or 25-1 in the majors he was in. And I always felt like, oh, that's a good bet on Zal. I don't feel like the number is good on Cam, but I don't really have a good reason why.
Look, Cam Young is number 2 in this field in driving distance and number 2 in this field from 150 to 200 yards. If you just go that 50-yard bucket range, you're going to get a lot of shots from that range. And look, he's not going to gain 8 shots on approach like he did at match play. Again, he's not like that popper of a approach player consecutively. He's a good approach player. He's playing great golf. I think that's a fair number. Let's look at he played the Masters, missed the cut.
Played terribly last year.
Yeah, he lost 2.5 strokes on the greens last year at Augusta. Just not good. But he's playing some great golf
right now.
And
he has a new caddy who was Webb Simpson's caddy, and Webb always played good at Augusta. Like for being a short hitter, Webb overperformed at Augusta. We saw the impact of the new caddy in the very first tournament. I mean, who knows if you can trust the match play stats? But it says he gained 0.8 per round putting, which is the best that he had putted since the Rocket Mortgage. Like he was in a bad slump putting, and now he's learning aim point. What's exciting to me for him is just like the upside on an approach that he has been showing, the ability to gain 8 strokes in an event. Like it's just not something I think of with Cam Young. And so in these conditions, if he's hitting all the par 5s and 2, giving himself eagle looks, having just to leg it up there for tap-in birdies on the par 5s, I think like for a top 10 type of bet or to play him in DraftKings, I'm sure it'll be popular. But
yeah, I'm hammering him for sure.
Like the path to a top 10, it's just like all he has to do is just play his normal game, and he's a lock for a top 10.
Yeah,
I
was betting Cam Young before I bet Patrick Cantlay. Then I remember like I sneaky like laughed at people betting Cam Young futures just because like he's Cam Young, but like I didn't realize how good the numbers were. Like he looks awesome. Is that going to correlate to a major championship as he just blossoms immediately to pop? Probably not, but I do think he will perform well. So I like where your head's at with Cam as well. Maybe you hit that. You can do can't like Cam Max.
Yeah, the more we talk, and it's just I knew this would be where I would go. Like, I don't think I've ever bet somebody below 12-1 in my life in any tournament. Like,
Oh
it's
yeah,
just not what I do. Like my car,
no,
like both on the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour, and like I do all right at hitting outrights.
yeah.
I have a strategy, and like it's so hard for me to diverse from it. And like I was feeling so strongly about Scotty earlier today, but you start to talk about these guys and realize that like you're just building a narrative kind of in your head about like issues with these players because everybody this week is talking about the top of the board so much. You're like, I haven't even thought about Max, and he's one of my favorite players to bet. And then you talk through it, and it's like his form is better than his number. And my style is trying to find where I think there's value in the numbers and betting like 4 or 5 of those guys, knowing that one of those guys is going to pop. I'm probably more likely to end up there now than I was before.
I think that's fair. So we'll finish it up with some long shots, like 70 plus, who I think can contend. I'll start it off with not contend, just top 10,
Yeah.
show themselves on the weekend. I think Keith Mitchell can do that. Whenever Rory McIlroy rates out well, whenever Rory McIlroy is playing well, you play Keith Mitchell. And if I didn't get that boost on Rory, I was going to go Rory Keith card, something like that. You just name the courses that Rory's played well at. Keith has had success there. So driving distance, and that's basically what it boils down to. Plus, he's playing well right now. He's not really playing. Actually, he might be playing some of the best golf of his career over like a 2-month period. He's figured out the around the green play. I wouldn't say figure it out, but he's playing a lot better around the green, which he didn't in his career. But who knows how that will translate to Augusta? It's a whole different animal. But I think Keith Mitchell, you can get him at 120-1, which don't bet the 120. I don't think he's going to win, but that can correlate to value top 10, top 20. So Keith Mitchell, I think is a decent look. What about you, long shot wise?
So he's a guy that obviously brought me the most pain that I've ever felt in golf betting by a trillion million miles. But there was a reason why he was one swing away from being a major champion. And think about all of the guys who are not even come close to being major champions that we've talked about on this podcast.
Yep.
Mito Pereira at 100+1 or whatever he is, like he flushes the golf ball. Everything that we just said about Cam Young is also true about Mito. He's unbelievable off the tee. His approach is sensational, and he's pretty good around the greens. And then it just becomes like, does the putter heat up for him or not? We know tee to green, Mito Pereira has the skill set to win a major championship right now. And he was playing well when he was on the PGA Tour at the end of his PGA Tour career. He finished T4 at Shriners. He finished T18 at CJ Cup, went to live, and he's been fine. He was T6 at the Saudi International, T11 at whatever Oman is, 16-6-6. He's playing just fine. And I don't think of live as a place where, like, you got to make birdies and stuff. I think of Mito as just a great ball striker who's going to just play solidly every single time that he tees it up. And I would just really like the fit for him here, the way he drives it, the way he shapes it. And I think Southern Hills is a reasonable comp for what'll take place this week.
100-1.
I'm not afraid to go back to the well because when you're thinking about who can actually win a major championship in these range, a lot of these guys have no serious chance of winning a major championship. They're good players. I like Adam Svensson. He's not going to win the Masters, but I expect Svensson to play well, and that's a guy like Indika. Mito can do it. He almost he knocked close. He was closer to winning than Cam Young has come to winning a major. Like, he, to me, should be priced in the same range as all these other guys who theoretically, what's different right now between Mito and Zalatoris? Zalatoris is playing terrible. Mito's playing solidly consistent form. Like, I'm not saying they're necessarily equal players. I'm just saying Mito is being priced like he has 0% chance of winning when we know he can do it.
Remember when Mito was first coming up and he didn't prove anything. He was just a guy. He was being bet and bet and bet and bet and bet. Now he's much more proven and at even a better and better numbers. I mean, obviously not the PGA, but like I'm saying in regular tour events, like he was like 20-1 in some events. So, look, Mito has obviously gone away, but he's still proven a young talent, and he's playing good golf. Whether it's on live or on the PGA Tour, he's playing good golf. Who knows how that will translate? But I like where your head's at with that. Could be a decent look in the top 20. You could probably get a nice top 20 number on Mito. So, anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No. Hold on. Let me just look at the board here to see if there's any other guys that I had opinions on. Oh, just kind of in the Mito realm, and in a similar type of player, and a guy who actually just won on the PGA Tour and should fit this course great is Kurt Kitayama. Why couldn't Kurt play great? We talk about how there's only a few guys who can win these big tournaments. The only guy who has beaten them is Kurt at API, sure. And then Sam won the match play, but you talk about a stroke play event. And it wasn't fluky. Kurt was up there at Congaree against Rory and Rahm and played totally fine. Rory just beat him down the stretch, but he didn't fade or suck. He was up there against – every time Kurt has played well, he's only been beaten by somebody who's really good. Xander beat him at the Scottish.
Mexico. How could we forget Mexico? Literally a major.
Major course. Rahm beats him there. Like, he could have multiple wins if he just didn't get beat that week by a guy who's like an elite player. He finally broke through and won. Why isn't he getting more respect on the odds board? At a place where distance and hot iron play and great short game, who's around the green play, is sick.
Why got a caddy with experience too?
Why can't Kurt compete this week? And we know he can. There's only so many people are going to talk about these guys way down the board. Like I said, talk about guys who were proven in their career and all this shit. We know what those guys are. We know what they're capable of. We know who they are. Kurt, in the same realm as Mito, is just over the last year we've started to understand what this guy is capable of. And his price this week doesn't respect by any means what we've learned about him as a player, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So, like, he could probably, just like I said, the top 20 number, decent number there, because he's definitely, when he's playing well, he's literally can contend in this with these guys and contend and finish top 10.
And he made quarterfinals at match play. Like, yeah, he got out of Finau's group.
Playing good golf. Yeah, Kurt and Mito, decent looks. I think that will wrap it up. I'm gonna look real quick. Anyone else I want to look at? Seamus Power, he's just completely now. I think that does it. Adam, you can find him. DG Betting right on the screen. Thank you so much for joining me. Truly one of my best friends I've met in this golf betting world. Thank you for joining me, Adam. What else? Where else can they find you? Anything else you got to plug?
Just the website, vincerix.com, vincerix.com. I've got the model up there right now. Got some stats up on the page, and then I'll have the preview out with whoever I end up picking. If you've listened to this, you probably have no idea who I'm going to bet, and that's because I have no idea who I'm going to bet. But I'll have made that decision by tomorrow afternoon. It'll be up on the website.
Check out the website. Literally will be huge in the future. Trust me. Adam, thank you for joining me. We will catch you guys with more Masters content, Generation F Media this week. See you maybe tomorrow. We got stuff from Sam. So see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.